It's about 8:05. Can't even talk right now. 4:06. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Okay. Cool. Can someone update in the Telegram just so they know? All right. So we can go ahead and go live on the Facebook and streaming. Melody, go ahead and let me know when you're ready to do that or when it's done.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, excellent. Hello, everybody. My name is Kiosha. Also go by Kosh for my comrades. And we are here today in Tiwa territory, beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico. Amazing place, amazing food, amazing people, and the revolution is strong here. So I am here today to kind of introduce our keynote panel with such special comrades, including Cole, Shai, Justine, and Cleo. I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to go ahead and pass it off. Justine, when you're ready, can you go ahead and start us off with an introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Ubiakindi Segitamu Goetsi Hopa Na Otoa Kama Kapo Winge Titsuge Winge Haku Iweriomu. Hello everybody, my name is Justine Tiba. I'm from the pueblos of Santa Clara, Tisuki, and Acoma. Right now, today, I am based in Acoma Pueblo, and I have been a member of the Red Nation since the fall of 2018, and I am also a co-founder of the Pueblo Feminist Caucus. Thank you all so much for joining our Native Liberation event. We have seen 3 very powerful and awesome panels, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So thank you all for being here. Kuntavoha.
All right, can we go ahead and keep it going with Cole next?
Yat Esh Nicole Martin Nisha Tachini Nishla Kiasani Bashishin Chisha Dashache Kiasani Dashanella. Hello everyone, I introduced myself in Dinek Bazad, which is the Navajo language. I'm red running into the water, born for Parrot Clan. My Che was Chiricahua Apache and my Nali was Wizard Clan. I was born and raised here in Tiwa territory, which is Albuquerque, New Mexico. But I call Laguna Pueblo my home, which is about 45 miles west of Albuquerque. I'm a member of the Red Nation. I can't remember when exactly I officially became a Red Nation member, but I have been around for a while and really enjoy the work that the Red Nation does, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Aside from that, I also do a lot of reproductive justice work and healthcare with Indigenous Women Rising. And yeah, I kind of do a lot of community organizing. Thank you, Shaha Dawa, for having me. And I'm looking forward to this final panel after such great, powerful words and wisdom and knowledge was shared this weekend.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Very strong, very strong. All right, Shai and Cleo, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. Feel free to continue it on.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me pretty good? Okay. My name is Cheyenne Antonio. Halton Schlet, Kachi Ibashistrin, Shidasha Chedo, Kiani Dashnella, Unle, not Nijindet, Nasha, out the Scott and Schle. Hi everyone. Hi relatives. If I'm related to you, welcome. Thank you for being here today with us. I am a lead organizer with the Red Nation. I've been an active member since the Red Nation was founded in 2014. And so I kind of, got into this work, was also a part of the IPD efforts back in 2015, 2016. So I'm really happy to be here. I also do a lot of local organizing work for my community in Eastern Donetsk against the extractive industries and gender-based violence that happens. And so it's good to be here today. And I'll pass it to my Mayej.
Yate, Shayat, Twanesani, Shlo, Ketachini, Bashastri, one of the Chanela area, Falsotan, out of the Shache, Shaskis Anidan, then what I ash master, the cab, Nashadilia, Shaya, not Neljin Dash, Shimarosha, Chester, and also terrible, yeah. And what I on the late in the Twati and the Quixote. Hello, relatives, near and far. My name is Cleo. That's my government name. My last name is Otero. I am from the Tangle clan, and I'm born for the Red House clan. I am, my paternal grandfathers are from the Metal People clan, and my maternal grandfathers are Bear Hopi clan, and that's who I am as a matriarch put on Shemasta, Mother Earth, and my parents are Chester and Elsa Otero. They still reside on the reservation. They grew up there and still remain there in the frontline community of a reservation. But that's my introduction. I love to cook. I love to cook, and that's what I do. That's a big part of the role that I play in the revolutionary cooking. I support all the warriors, water protectors, and everywhere, anywhere I can with across Turtle Island. So that's who I am as me, Cleo. Became Bob.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for your strong voices, for your strong presence. I realized that I forgot to introduce myself in our language. Yad Eanatso, Kyoshe, Peter Yanishye, but Ani Ninsle, Nakarana Bashichin, Zetlaha Bahanda Tachi Ni Dashanele, Dagaskai, Dat Nasha, Agat Egandana, Zani Ninsle. And with that, I just want to, again, thank everyone for their presence, for their ability to be on this panel today. And I think we're going to have a really great conversation. Well, I know we're going to have a really great conversation because all of y'all are so amazing. Y'all do so much for the movement. Y'all do so much for the revolution. And I'm here to kind of help share that with everyone that's joining us either through social media, through YouTube, through our Facebook page. And I just really hope we all just have like a really nice time today. So, you know, I think we will. So to begin us off, I just want to start with this first question, right? We talked a little bit about what TRN kind of means to us, how we got involved, how long we've been in TRN. Just within our introductions, and I would love to delve into that question a little bit more. What does it mean for you to be part of TRN? And how did you get involved? And I'll let you all go ahead and pick whoever's first. And if you feel called to respond or go next, you're more than welcome to. I'll help keep the conversation going along the way too. So anyone's welcome to go first.
So getting involved with the Red Nation just kind of evolved really smoothly itself. I could take it back before all that, like what I always explain to folks that want to listen to my story and how I'm involved with the revolution is for dignity and freedom and liberation for our people. Like that started from day one. We're born into the revolution because our parents put us there, and they were the spoken and unspoken prayers of our ancestors. And so that's who the Red Nation is. Like we have a calling, and you answer that call, whether I don't know when it happens for everybody else, but it happened early for me. I knew at a young age, like I was telling some of my comrades about things that I've been thinking about when I was asked about this. And my father had once told me, like, we used to go hunting rabbits in the winter, I didn't hunt, my dad did, I just trudged along after him. And there's oftentimes he would tell me about being on the checkerboard area, which is an area at the edge of the eastern reservation of the Navajos. And he'd often tell me about like, what you see is all that we have left to ourselves, like because of the government and because of the land allotments and such. And that if the system decided to take that away from us, they could. So at a very, very, very young age, I was taught this. So I think that I was aware of those things from the teachings of my folks and the people that I grew up in my community. So it just evolved. It made sense to join the Red Nation. It coincided with my beliefs about housing people, abolishing police, being a good relative, being kind, giving back, alongside with a very strong strength and belief of myself that it has to go with prayer as well, because that's who we are as Indigenous people. It's very important. So I can't really say, like, my brother has been aware of TRN for a long time. He really liked the way that they organize, and so he recommended me to him. And so I've been a supporter for a long time, and then I evolved to being part of the Red Nation, and I'm just really honored to be a member. So being a part of this movement, not even a member, that's an understatement. It's a movement. It starts with the youth all the way to the elder. Like, we've had some phenomenal panelists here, and I fit in there somewhere in between, so we have to make those connections as an auntie. I'm at that auntie stage. I'm not quite an elder yet, but for the youth and the elders to support one another, we need to listen to each other. And I think that's kind of like my role too in TRN. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, if anything hit you in terms of like, you want to respond to it, I really want to encourage you to share your story as well. So any of our other three panelists. Yeah, Justine, you feel moved? Go for it.
I do feel moved. Thank you so much, Cleo. Thinking about how I got started in the Red Nation, I was called to it. I was called, had to be back in like 2017, 2016 even, around the time of Standing Rock was when I had this like feeling inside of me that was calling me to the movement, I guess. I didn't even know it at the time. I wasn't very politicized back then. In fact, I was a completely different person back then. And it's kind of, when I think of the state of mind I was in back then and how I got called to the movement, it was as if like I was seeing a light in the darkness, because the only reason I wasn't in such a great place like as a person back then was because I was abiding by the logic of capitalism, which as an Indigenous woman, we don't belong in it, and that sort of logic of capitalism destroys us, and if it doesn't destroy you, we end up destroying ourselves. And so I was an addict and an alcoholic by the time during this time, and that's actually why I didn't get to go to Standing Rock. And it wasn't until what really called me to the Red Nation specifically was the Entrada movement in the year 2017. It was the second action. It was the second year that the Red Nation had gone to the Entrada to protest against it back in Santa Fe. And I just thought it was the most powerful thing, because I had never seen Pueblo people be so rad, be so like really like spreading their truth like this. Because what the Entrada was it was a genocide parade. What it was Hispanic people celebrating the return of the conquistadors back to Santa Fe after 12 years after the Pueblo Revolt. So we had kicked them out of Santa Fe, and then 12 years later they came back. And so that's what the Entrada celebration was about during the Santa Fe fiestas. And I went to the last Entrada action, and I was there. And for the first time, I had this affirming, I was affirmed that what I believed already was right, because the logic of colonization, growing up so confused as a child, wondering why, just wondering why we were colonized, and why it was okay for colonizers to celebrate these things. And it was until I saw the Red Nation being against them that I knew that that it was affirming to those feelings that I had inside of myself. And so I moved to Albuquerque sometime after that, and I joined the Red Nation in the year 2018. And since then, I've done a lot of work, not only in the movement, but on myself. And this is a common theme that I noticed in throughout the panels. I saw in the international panel and in the elders panel, and there's a theme of, you have to help yourself before you can help others. I know that there are other really rad and revolutionary folks who have had to battle addiction and alcoholism and things like that. And doing all of that unlearning and things. So the Red Nation means more than just a organization. It's the Red Nation and the movement of it actually saved my life and gave me dignity and gave me the tools and power needed to do this kind of work, to advocate for a life affirming world, to advocate for a dignified life for not just my people relatives, but my, the land and the water and all my relatives around me. So the Red Nation in many ways means everything.
Those are also some really strong words that you bring for us today, right? And I think that each of us who are in this panel or on this panel, or even joining it through one of our social media outlets or extensions, really feel what you're saying, because what we understand as Native people and our experience as Native people is this particular view, because it's a particular form of violence. It's a tactic of power and control that's used to subjugate us. So I think you bring a very beautiful perspective. Thank you, Justine. And I want to open the floor to Cole or Shai to also share. If you feel moved to go next, you're always more than welcome to jump right in.
Sure, I'll go next. Thank you, Cleo and Justine, for your words. I first heard of the Red Nation while I was attending Fort Lewis College. I think I was in my junior or senior year of college, and they, mobilized and went to Standing Rock, and I was in a weird place in my life at that time. And so it wasn't until I moved back into Albuquerque around 2017 that I started to just kind of come around more, and then I think it probably was until 2018 that it was really Jennifer extended the invitation to come to a meeting, or really encouraged me to come to a meeting and check it out. And at the time, the Red Nation was putting together direct actions in terms of Chaco Canyon, frack off Chaco. And so I think for me too, along the lines, being a person that has experienced violence and addiction, and then navigating of how to come back to ourselves, was really also to help the Red Nation, being in ceremony with relatives. For me, that's really what it is about. And not being able to do that in the pandemic, seeing how we had to be innovative to keep our spirit, but not only that, the spirit of the Red Nation going. And I'm really proud. I'm really proud of what, you know, we've been able to do with all of our limited capacities. You know, we're not only trying to take care of ourselves, but we're trying to take care of all of our community members, whether they live in our households or whether they live on the streets. That's really why I came to the Red Nation, you know, too, was how do I be a better relative? And seeing comrades do that, you know, was what brought me to the Red Nation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your story, Cole. I really appreciate that. I do want to give a reminder that we do have Spanish interpretation. So if that's something that you are interested in, you should be able to find it right next to the Q&A box on the bottom part of Zoom. So you are always welcome to check out that interpretation option if that could be useful for you. All right. Shai, how are you feeling about this first question? You ready to answer? Yeah? Okay, I'll go ahead and let you have the floor.
Thank you, Coach. Hi, everyone. What does it mean to be a part of Red Nation, and how did you get involved, right? How I got involved was consensual. I accepted that Native liberation is the force that drives me, is a force that drives all of us, a lot of us in our group. What I've got to learn, well, for one, what caught my attention about the Red Nation as I was president of UNM Kiva Club was the writing of, you know, in Indian country, of the murder of Cowboy and Rabbit. And I've never seen, you know, coming from the res, straight from the Eastern res, seeing that it's okay for Native people to demand justice for our uncles and for our grandfathers, for everyone, right? For our peoples, that they deserve justice. That's what really caught my attention. Really practicing what we say, right? Because while I was growing up, I would always hear my dad, our moms, right, our family talk about the mistreatment because we live it every day. And Red Nation is the organization that does something about it. And it's not just, you know, we're not staying warriored up at home, as they say. We actually, you know, I've got to see brilliant organizers, Native organizers, get up and do something about the treatment we face as Native people on our own territories, right? The violence in Gallup and Farmington. We see these happening to our relatives. And so just seeing the fire of the Red Nation light really, it's very sacred, very precious. We have to be very careful, but you know, we take care of it. And so that's what got me in the Red Nation. That's how I got involved. It's kind of crazy because in the very beginning, when I was a student at UNM, the very beginning, I was, you know, like, I'm all right. I kind of don't want to organize. And my uncle was like, why aren't you helping with the powwow, or the Najona Days powwow? And I was like, if I organize it, it'd probably be, you know, it'd be dope. And then sure enough, it happens and everything just falls together. And next thing you know, we're abolishing, you know, Columbus Day, all these settler holidays. And what the good thing about it is that we don't do it alone in the Red Nation. We do it wholesomely with our ancestors behind us. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing, amazing. I really like all of y'all's perspectives that you bring to the table, because, you know, a lot of it is coming back to the TRN fire that we have within us all. And I think that's really important, because it's gonna be what propels our movement, right? It's gonna be what drives us to care for one another or care for other people, right? Shai did do an amazing job running the powwow for like 3 or 4 years. It was for a really long time, and it was bomb every time. I learned how to make bread at that powwow really well, if I may say. So life skill learned. Anyway, you all brought up some great perspectives, and I do want to give a highlight to a few of them before we move on to our next question. And some of the things that came up was, being kind, being in prayer. As Indigenous people, we need to listen to one another. When we're called to the movement, it's usually for a purpose, for something that we're drawn to, that's connected to our land, to our place, to our people, to our communities. And I think that's really powerful and deserves to be uplifted. In order for us to, live dignified lives, not only with our human relatives, but with our non-human relatives as well. Knowing that, when we are speaking up, when we are speaking out, we're speaking out against the border town violence that's also present and conditioned many of us to live how we did. And under the logic of colonialism, which is a term I heard from Justine. I don't think I've read that before, so I'm going to put that out there. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next question really quick. Is that okay with everyone? You're more than welcome to give me a thumbs up. All right, I see some heads nodding. We're good. All right. The next question is, what does the Red Deal mean for you? And how does it influence you to organize toward Native liberation? And if anyone can give a little bit of context to what the Red Deal is, I would be greatly appreciative. All right, Justine, go for it.
Yeah, I can go. Got that thing on me. So the Red Deal, we just had it published into a book just this past April. So round of applause, everybody, because the Red Deal at the time of our last Native Liberation Conference, the Red Deal Part 1 and the occupation hadn't even been published on our website yet. So we've definitely come a long way since writing it. But the general overview of the Red Deal is there's 3 parts to it. It is our plan for Native liberation. It's Part 1 and the occupation. Part 2, and the occupation, but divest. Part 2 is heal our bodies, reinvest in our common humanity. And Part 3 is heal our planet, reinvest in our common future. And those 3 areas of struggle are the 3 main areas of which we channel our efforts for Native liberation. And it's ran under 4 principles. There's 4 organizing principles of the Red Deal, and that's what creates crisis cannot solve it, change from below and to the left, politicians can't do what only mass movements do, and from theory to action. And those are all the guiding principles of the Red Nation. And what the Red Deal means to me is it means so much to me, but I think it was best said yesterday during our youth panel by our youngest member, Bear, who said, everybody deserves, he basically said, everybody needs food, water, a house, and everybody should have their own room. And so simple, but that is what sums up the heart and of our movement. That's exactly what we're fighting for in the Red Deal. We're fighting for basic human rights and needs. And the Red Deal basically just lays out an action plan on how to achieve it, whether it be folks organizing on the ground for the first time, or organizations looking to Indigenous people and looking to Indigenous leadership. That is where we bring y'all to the Red Deal to look at our word and look at what we think, because to achieve those things, to achieve human rights, it is a simple mission. It is so simple. And the thing that makes it complicated is capitalism and colonialism, colonization, and that, living in that constant state, it seems like an impossible task because, again, like the logic of it all disallows us from even thinking that it's achievable. But what the Red Deal does is it affirms those deep-seated beliefs that we all have, that people deserve these things. And not only that, but it offers like a clear pathway and a clear action plan, basically. And we have Democratic liberals who say that they boast the Green New Deal, but what the Green New Deal lacks is Indigenous leadership, and it doesn't account for Indigenous people, Indigenous nations, and that's where the Red Deal picks it up, and it accounts for all of that. It is like the most well-rounded, solid action plan that we have.
Amazing, amazing. Looks like Cole has something to add. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off.
Yeah, thank you for that, Justine. What I really love about the Red Deal is that my comrades put it together. And for me, like reading through it, I was like, dang, maybe I shouldn't have went to college and like waited. So I wouldn't have gone into like student debt, because what the Red Deal does is it actually taught me everything that I learned in college in the book. And like making education accessible like that is important, because not a lot of our community members or our relatives, like I know within my own family, not a lot of us were able to attend higher ed, and so to be able to like politicize yourself through that deal, which wasn't a lot, compared to like what you have to read in academic settings, there's so much content. It's very powerful. I like cried when I read it, because it just goes to show the wisdom and the passion that the Red Nation has for everyone, not just themselves. And so that's what I think the deal is it's politicizing people in a way where they don't have to go into debt to learn these things.
I think that's really telling, especially with Che's birthday in the last few days that just happened. And I just want to like lift that up. Like, we all deserve free education. We all deserve access to basic needs, and we all deserve access to resources that we need within our lives to just stay alive. And everyone needs that. And this lays it out. The Red Deal is so phenomenal. If you can, please get yourself a copy and share it with your friends and family. My little sister wanted my copy, and so I gave it to them. My sibling, I'm sorry. Melody also shared a copy of the link of where you can order it in our chat. And I just again want to lift up the Spanish translation. If that's something that you need or something that you would like to use, feel free to use that. It's to the right of the Q&A button. All right. Shai and Cole, or Shai and Cleo, go ahead and take it away. Question 2. If you need me to repeat it, just let me know. Okay. What does the Red Deal mean for you, and how does it influence you to organize toward Native liberation?
The Red Deal. What does it mean to me? It meant so much that a group of us, came together in our Larry Casus Freedom Center, and we're like, how are we going to respond to the Green New Deal that completely ignores the voices, of the First Peoples who caretake this land, especially being one of the impacted, communities on this land, right? To extractive industries. Being that New Mexico is the second largest oil producer in this so-called nation right now. The Red Deal is an organizing tool that is for your communities. The Red Nation isn't here to tell you, how to respond, but we're here to work with, how can we meet you halfway, or how can we help you move forward? And so one of the things that really sticks out to me, growing as an organizer, as a person, as a Dene person, is really, not doing what politicians can't do. Because majority of the time, I come from Pueblo, Pintado, Torreon, New Mexico, and we are seeing a large amount of oil and gas industry, not only there, but, in the entire Four Corners region, and coming from a resource colony, like the Navajo Nation. Most of the people that we turn to for help are politicians. And my community, our tri-chapter community, we continue to go to politicians, and the Red Nation is where, a space where we can think about, we think more than just politicians. We see more than politicians. We see our community. How are we giving that power back to our communities to resist? And how are we giving them the tools to understand, how much, settler colonization impacts us every day? It's an everyday thing. Colonization is a drug, basically. If you really think about it, it impacts us every day, makes us doubt ourselves, makes us lose ourselves. But, thanks to the Red Deal, I now see hope in our communities by organizing. And it's really just a tool for folks to use. And, we're here to help use the Red Nation as a way, if you have any, if you would like to brainstorm or figure out ways to resist, we can figure it out, right? Because you have the podcasts that do really well also. It's great to see the Red Nation bloom in that way, and sharing knowledge through podcasts and talking about decolonizing, ways to take back our communities through, hearing directly from them. And I think our comrades who, continue to do phenomenal interviews and really getting to the root of it, helps me. And I can't imagine what more it could do, right? If our local communities KNDN, if they could play that every day, parts of it, and translating the Red Deal in our own languages, what would that look like? And I'm pretty sure, our elders already know those ways, those ways, those prayers, that have already been put out for us to be here, to really, push forward the Red Deal. It's important, and it calls for everyone. It's for everyone. I think one thing that kind of gets taken back from it is is it just a Native thing? No, it's for everyone. The Red Deal is for everyone. But let me see. I'm trying to think of your second question. That was asked with this.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You answered it. It was, how does it influence your organizing or how you approach Native liberation?
The way that I've really put the Red Deal into practice is by having our own community gatherings. We've hosted one. The Red Nation has hosted one in Farmington at the Identity Center, where we got to hear directly, right, from our elders, and we had a march to call an end to the extractive industries that plague our lands here in the Netpa, where we see it firsthand, right? Our rivers, everything. But yeah, so that's how we carry it forward. And right now, one thing that I'm working on also is a micromediation in using mushrooms to clean up produced water and oil and gas waste. And so that's something we have going with Beata, Sosi Pena, and Caitlin with Tewa Women United. We came together to grow some mushrooms. So we have mycelium mushrooms now that are growing at in our chapter houses, and we'll be putting them in here soon before it gets really cold. So that's just the way that that we're putting in the Red Deal, is really going back to our lands and making sure that we're caretaking them. And because these oil industries aren't they're not cleaning up our lands. They're not. They're just going in, drilling, wasting, polluting our lands and leaving. And in order to show up, rather than just talking about it, now we have to clean it up ourselves. And it's dangerous, right? Because we're putting our lives on the line of possibly getting sick, because everyone around us is getting sick. You know, it's not like the industry or the state cares about our people getting sick. We have to do this on our own. And that's why the red deal is created, is so you can use it. And so use it, you know, we're here. And so, yeah, so the red deal's for everyone, and please use it.
Awesome. Thank you. Cleo, do you have anything else that you would like to add around the Red Deal and how it's influenced your work towards Native liberation? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Okay. So the red deal is like phenomenal. It's a vision, a prayer. It's a plan for Indigenous and non-Indigenous folks for like liberation of just like to be able to have housing, like Bear said, and having the basic necessities of healthcare, decent healthcare, and having clean water for our people. Having sovereign nations, like we can take care of our own people. We know about our own people. We know how to take care of our people. We don't need policing. We don't need to have folks come into our homes and ask us if we're good caretakers of our own children, because that's not right. We don't need to be leasing our own lands to farm it. That's all in the red deal. Everything I'm saying is in the red deal. Being a good relative, no matter what. Always, it's always hard. I mean, every day you gotta get up and be a good relative, no matter what. Like, sometimes it's hard, but it's easier to go with the grain than against the grain. That's what I learned. That's what I'm learning. And to listen to the youth, you know, close that gap. Like, I heard the youth asking for acknowledgement to like open up our spaces, like as elders, like not just myself, but even SIBs, like old elder SIBs, to open up their space to them and consider hearing their voices, because they have a lot to say. Their minds are open. They're connected still. The red deal is all of that. It's all connected. And just like aiming for that prayer that the red deal has been laid with, like to have unity and have a strong community, so we don't have to need, like when we're there to do the work of feeding our unsheltered folks. When there's a call out for medicines, you just do it. You show up, you do it. When you're invited to spaces that need to get things done, you do it. It gets tiring and it's tough sometimes, but who else is going to do it? You know, that's what the red deal is. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but we put in the work, y'all. We're here for other people that want to do this kind of work. The Red Nation is here for you all. We can do this. The youth know it. The youth know it. They're woke. Our youngest member is 7 years old.
Amazing, amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm so sorry. Did I cut you off? Did you want to add some more things?
He knows it. So these kids are listening. The youth is listening. So with that, like give them that space, give them that acknowledgement, teach them. Like we're all teachers. We don't have to be an elder to be a teacher. We all have knowledge within ourselves to teach. We all bring something to the table. We all have a role. We need to check those sometimes and like find yourself in the red deal. Like where are you a part of this red deal movement, the Red Nation movement? Find that spirit and connect, and everything will fall into place. And you're gonna have to do the work though, be part of the work.
Thank you so much, Cleo. I think that y'all bring up some amazing points, right? The red deal is for everyone. The red deal is a toolkit. The red deal is an organizing tool for us to move forward. And with that, I wanted to read just a small portion of the red deal. And this is on page 7. Each movement rises against colonial and corporate extractive projects, but what often downplayed is the revolutionary potency of what Indigenous resistance stands for: caretaking and creating just relations between human and other than human worlds on a planet thoroughly devastated by capitalism. And that's what we're in response to. Each day that we wake up, each day we try to be a good relative. Where we're speaking against the colonial state, the logic of colonialism. And I just want to applaud you all for all of your hard work, right? Because as revolutionaries, we're tired. We're tired, but we're tired for good reason, right? We're trying to bring all of our community together in class struggle. Because if not us, then who, right? Cleo, I was really touched that you brought in the words of our relative Larry Casus, because that's in the spirit of Larry Casus is what we do. And with that, I'm going to ask our next question. It is very similar to what we just answered, but I'm going to go ahead and share this. How do you see the power of the Red Deal in Native organizing on the ground? Again, how do you see the power of the Red Deal in Native organizing on the ground? And we can kind of feel out this question. If this is a question you'd like to respond to, you're more than welcome to. If it's not something you're vibing to, that's totally okay. We can move on to the next one. All right. All right. So does anybody want to start us off?
I can, I guess, sort of like speak to it a little bit. So when I think of like the power of the Red Deal and like what that means, I think of like the power behind the movement, which is like a very like what I've come to learn, like a very like sacred sort of like warrior power almost. And last summer during the long hot summer of BLM uprisings in 2020, during the portion of the pandemic where there wasn't a vaccine yet, the Red Nation had hopped to action. We were a part of that movement too. And it was kind of crazy to see how everything like came together. As you recall, during that summer, we had a lot of uprisings, and even last Indigenous Peoples Day, they in Santa Fe, they removed the obelisk, that was dedicated to I don't know, something about the Civil War. It said called us savage Indians on it, but they took it down. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. But yeah, and with that, there was the takedown of all of the, there was statues taken down all across the United States. And here in New Mexico, there was a takedown of the Oñate statues in both Alcalde and in Albuquerque. And that day, the Red Nation went to Alcalde. And it was a very powerful action because the settlers went ahead and removed their statue themselves for us. And so it ended up being a celebration. And then that day we, when we were leaving that action, we were on our way back to Albuquerque and we were watching the Facebook Live, and we actually saw something very terrible happen. One of our comrades on the ground, not a Red Nation member, but he was a water protector who had went to Standing Rock. He got shot by a fascist settler militiaman, who was there with the purpose to protect that like sort of like settler ideology, to protect that statue, because what these vigilante settlers have, all they have is their settler identity, and so they will go to the lengths to protect it. And so when we were talking to this comrade later on, he made a full recovery. He was shot multiple times, but he said that he was, I guess, the spirit that is that protects us, and that's part of our movement. It protected him and it twisted his body, so that he made a full recovery. And just a month later, he was he was at an action with us with his cane ready to go, because after that had happened, when all the statues and stuff were coming down, that's when Trump had, created that initiative, Operation Patriot, where he had sent all these Fed cops to target cities in the United States. And Albuquerque was one of them. Albuquerque had already had these, there was already Operation Relentless Pursuit before Operation Patriot. And so we were already hyper policed in Albuquerque. And so when we were going to all of these Black Lives Matter marches and protests, these settler vigilantes were following us, and they started to get to know who exactly the Red Nation was. And they realized that we were a contradiction to their settler logic. They realized that we were a threat to their, way of life, which we are, because, we're fighting for a world that gives dignity to our most marginalized people, to Indigenous people, to Black and Brown people, to people on the streets. And that is directly against their logic of the United States. But we had an action. It was called No Fash, No Feds, No Cops, and Land Back. And we had rounded up all of leftist Albuquerque for that one. And I remember as we were preparing the night before, we actually, prayed for the next day that was going to come. And the day of the action, that morning, the New Mexico Civil Guard had threatened two of our members, Nick and Melanie, who were, they threatened them by actually saying that they're going to host an event outside of their house to threaten them. And in an attempt to get us to stop our action, in an attempt to cancel our action, I guess. And what ended up happening was we soldiered up, we stood up, and we got that courage to go out. And it was because we had the support of our community. I remember there was Indigenous elders and grandmas and aunties who showed up to Nick and Melanie's house with their powwow chairs and just posted up at the fence outside to protect them. And those settler vigilantes never showed up over there. But then when it came time to the action, we were standing outside of, I remember as we were going downtown to where we were going to post up, which was between the courthouses downtown on Lomas. There was no clouds in the sky, and it was hot. I remember thinking oh, I hope there's shade because it's so hot. And we ended up, it kind of felt eerie. There was an eerie feeling because there wasn't really any cops around. And the vibe of the time, I feel like it was almost as if we were going into battle or going into war or something like that, because we knew that we were going to be up against the cops. We didn't know what was going to happen, but we knew that we knew why we were there, because we didn't want these cops there. We wanted to send the message that we don't want you here. We don't want you here to kill our people, to police our people, and to be part, we're a target city under Trump's regime or whatever. But when we went down there, it was the total opposite. And and then the other layer too, we knew we were also going to face off with these fascists, the New Mexico Civil Guard, the Proud Boys, and all of these right-wing vigilante groups. And we were ready to face off with them. But what ended up happening instead was all of a sudden, when right as we began to speak, all of this wind and rain and thunder just came out of nowhere. And later on, I found out from a comrade that all of this weather was actually coming from the direction of Chaco Canyon. Our comrade was out near Pueblo Pintado, and he took a picture of the rain, and he said, look, it's all going to Albuquerque. And the feeling on the ground back then was just like it was otherworldly, but it was just affirming, so affirming that what we were doing was the right thing. Because when all of that weather came in, it didn't wash us away. We stayed there with our bullhorns. We put our bullhorns in plastic bags, and we amplified our messages louder. But what it did do was it made the cops never deployed. We heard that they were ready to go, but because of the rain, they never made it to us. The helicopter that was circling us had to come back down. And of course, these settler vigilantes aren't going to bring their shiny toys out into the rain. And so our ancestors that day backed us up. And right after the rain and everything stopped, there was a double rainbow in the sky. And it was just like, wow. Like that was the first action in all of 2020 since the pandemic started that the Red Nation had done. And it was because we were doing the right thing. We were doing what this movement is, and we were backed up. And there's examples of ancestors showing up to back up their people all throughout different tribes and nations and pueblos. And I think that this was a clear and blatant example of one of those times when we were doing the right thing and our ancestors came to back us up. And it's because we're organizing around the principles of the Red Deal, which is to end the occupation and, to abolish the police and to really just create a world where our relatives don't live in fear. And I had never seen a power like that before. And I thought I really wanted to get that story straight and let everybody know that that's what's happened that day on July 30th, 2020. And it's because we're organizing around these principles that we want a life-affirming world.
Amazing. It ties right back into the dignified life that we want to lead and live as Native peoples. And I really am grateful for you to recap our long, hot pandemic summer like that, because, we had some inquiries around what had happened after the action once the rain and the wind came in the chat. So I really appreciate you sharing that narrative, because that's really important. And that just shows you the power of prayer, the power of our solidarity, and the power of the Red Nation. And not just the Red Nation alone, like the whole left movement here in the Southwest, and how strong we are. Just like we had seen earlier in the panel discussion this morning on internationalism, it only took 6 Native peoples in Prince Rupert to push off a ship that was trying to dock for days. And that was so inspiring. And so, to see our presence, I just feel it. Oh, goosebumps. Anyway, does anybody else have a response to the question, how do you see the power of the Red Deal in Native organizing on the ground? All right. No takers. That's okay. I think that was a really strong story to kind of, Cleo, cool. Oh, shy. Okay. Let's do it.
Answer, but it's so loud in the background.
Okay. We can always come back to it. How about that? Yeah. Okay. All right. And until that, I'm going to go ahead and actually, if I don't write it down, I will forget it. So I'm going to copy and paste that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question really quick. And when it comes to a really good time for y'all to kind of speak and have like a nice lull of silence, you're more than welcome to kind of interject. All right, Shai and Cleo. The The next question reads, thinking of our struggles here in the US and around the world, why do we need the Red Deal at this time?
I'll go.
All right,
So
thank you.
earlier in the international panel, I believe it was Samir that had said, or maybe Kai, that said, people's thought of struggle usually stops at the borders, right? And so I think it's really imperative for everyone to see that, like, yes, our liberation is tied to the indigenous peoples in the global south, to the people in Palestine. And like for me too, I always still too have to think about you know my privilege too, right? My privilege being in the United States and like all the other types of privileges that I have, right? I could be complacent. I could not organize. I could hand off a lot of tasks that I do to other people, but I know that not a lot of people have the capacity, right? Not a lot of people, people are just trying to take care of their families. And so like to be able to even do direct action or, things like that, like it is a privilege too. And so for me, um, I see that, and like the power of like when people come together to organize around something that they care for. Like me and Chai, um, we went to a march and rally in Window Rock, Arizona, which is the capital of the Navajo Nation and where my mom's from. And it was very interesting to see a lot of a good mix of relatives, people young to older, marching and protesting against the Navajo Nation for, again, mishandling funding and putting their funding towards ridiculous things, rather than programs that can help our community members or, there's not a lot of shelters or programs that help our relatives that are struggling, if they're in domestic violence relationships or substance abuse, and like and doing it with genuine care, and I know it's for some of us like me, I've never actually been overseas. I've never been to Canada. I've never been to Mexico. I've never even been to Hawaii because I believe that, until Hawaii natives are liberated too, like I won't step foot on their lands for what? For commercial reasons or, like I guess it's just, for me, it really helps put everything in a bigger picture rather than just me, and knowing that I have comrades who believe and feel the same way, that it's not just us, it's not just here in the Southwest but all over. It's really powerful.
That is really powerful, right? The internationalism, I want to say transnational Indigenous solidarity as well. Like we're supporting our relatives in other Native nations and not just here in North America. And the goal is to be able, from what I've been reading, the part in Venezuela really touched me toward the introduction, where our relatives down there in the global south are waiting for us to catch up, are waiting for us to begin this fight in the belly of the beast. And it makes me want to throw up, but with excitement. But I didn't, oh my gosh, I just said I was going to throw up. Okay. Taking a step back, does anybody else want to respond to the question, thinking of our struggle here in the US and around the world, why do we need the red deal at this time? If not, Shai, are you in a good place to talk? We can return back to that previous question.
Okay.
Okay, you want me to read the question one more time?
Okay. Okay. I think both questions are very similar.
Yeah.
I think what matters now is international solidarity. I think the Red Deal ties that in all together very well, and assuring, we stand in solidarity with our relatives in the global South, demanding the end to ICE, demanding the end to Homeland Security. And it's kind of crazy because, Homeland Security tries to reach out to our nations. They try to speak on the behalf of us because they have a federal relationship. And, I think it's important to, name that the Red Deal really pushes, to think that we can talk about these issues so much, but we'll never really do anything, which has been happening, right? Which is why we wrote the Red Deal. But what is unique about the Red Deal is that we center Indigenous people who've been at the forefront of colonial violence, who've been at the forefront in holding settlers accountable since 1492. I think the Red Deal ties in, land and body violence very well. It's good. I've never read a report on transportation statistics, why and how it's important to have public transportation in our nations, right? Our native nations like the Nation, we do have public transportation, but it's to our very, high populated areas like Window Rock and Tuba City. But from where I'm from, our public transportation is putting our thumbs up and walking on the street and hoping that, we have that one relative, knows us and trusts us to pick us up. So we're really building in a decolonial way. That's the way that works in my community. But in the way that I envision, was that the question? I envision the Red Deal. The Red Deal does what the Green New Deal can't do. And that is, when we talk about the Bureau of Land Management, I don't think a lot of people connect how that is stolen land. I don't think we realize how much settlers have, how much access they have over our lands, especially during this time and age, and how colonial that whole process is, how colonial it is, and what does it mean for protection, especially coming from a checkerboard region where it's very up and down, and we really have to understand where we're at. But with the Red Deal, it's a new hope of coming together and centering ourselves, but also finding a native-centered climate justice approach, and knowing that the Earth's biodiversity is protected. The reason why most of it's protected is because of us, is because of Indigenous peoples, because we have that connection, and we know it, we feel it. We're the ones that have been holding the private companies, the private polluting companies of it accountable. I think about the time, I guess a native-centered approach is what we're doing now with the mycelium mushrooms, because for the past 5 years, 6 years, I'm trying to figure out how to help my grandparents hold these companies accountable as Alati owners. And, they get money, yes, they do get money, yes, but also, they pay for having to clean up those spills. They pay for having to know what all this, it's basically a business, but also just, figuring out ways to clean it up, because a lot of people, we get lost in money, we get lost in that conversation. But what we don't really talk about is who cleans this up, who cleans these up, but also, these companies divide us, similar to what they did during the Dawes Act, or since the U.S. has been, colonizing, that makes us fight each other. And what the Red Deal does is makes us realize that this isn't, we're not that we're not supposed to fight each other. We're supposed to fight together, like with as comrades in solidarity against, these industries and these monsters that plague our communities. Because, I was on a call with EPA on making sure that they have these air monitors in our community, and the people that we're zooming in with, they're not here, they're not in Farmington, they're not in Torreon, Pintado, Counselor, they're in Los Angeles. They're not here. And so that just shows why we need the Red Deal, and why we need to force them to do it. In a native approach, we're using our plants, we're using our teachings, and we make sure we have our elders there to be a part of it, and really just putting that power back on our communities, rather than having all these people speak for us. But these conversations are happening. I don't think we acknowledge that enough, but it doesn't have a name to it, right? Because it's organically growing. Our native movements are organically growing on its own. And all we have to, we just have to take care of each other and motivate each other to do more, or to do it well, take care of each other, because it doesn't stop here, right? Climate change, this climate ecocide that's happening right now, it's happening without our consent. And we need to make sure, that we stand with each other and not against each other. So with the Red Deal, it's a collective power, in reclaiming that power back from these corporate polluters and these capitalists, these greedy capitalists that think that we don't love our land, that we don't love each other when we do, and that's how we move forward. Kinship.
Thank you, Shai, so much for that. I think you said it beautifully, that our movement, that our fire, that our community, what we do and why we do what we do is because of love, right? And that's a radical form of love. It's a radical form of caretaking when our actions are guided by a radical form of love that wants to dismantle colonialism and settler colonialism, those racist laws and policies that make it harder for us to navigate the world, and how we know what we do, alongside, border town violence, racist discrimination. In the area that I'm from, I'm thinking particularly of the extractive resources that plague the northern New Mexico Four Corners area, because a lot of times those are jobs for people, but all at the cost of what our land, our lives, and our livelihood. And I just, thank you so much for your presence, for your voices. And I want to give one more question before we go out into our Q&A for the panel, or for the audience. But where are you seeing our struggles in our communities? And how can we learn more and be in solidarity with those struggles? And your struggles are our struggles are your struggles. So all of the struggles.
I can go first real quick. A lot of the struggles that I see in my community is, no access to clean air or clean water, and how this nation continues to lease land without our permission during a pandemic, right? It's like, how low can you go? Oh, we're gonna force this virus on you, and we're not gonna take care of you while we're at it. But also you have failing healthcare system, but also you don't have internet at your home. So where I see the struggle is with my grandparents, is with the youth, in our very rural communities. Last year, the height of during the highest point of the pandemic on the Navajo Nation, we were able, the Red Nation and the Torreon Community Alliance were able to distribute hay and water tanks and PPE to, you know, a lot of our rural communities in Eastern Navajo, you know, Naive, Counselor, Pueblo Pintado, and Torreon. And it was hard to see, you know, it was hard to see my relatives, you know, who are landowners, who are caretakers, you know, teaching our young people our language, our culture. Like it's all whole. It's in a I guess in a way of balancing out our teachings and stuff. A part of that is, you know, survival, basically survival, and where I see the struggles the most. And when I start mentioning the Red Deal or the Red Nation, you know, my family members are like, what are you guys gonna do next? How can we help? How can I be a part of this? How, you know, how can we do things? But also, even though, you know, the struggle is real, it's still good to see our kids fired up, right? Like Bear, you know, through all this struggle and trying to raise our kids, trying to even raise adults even, you know, our kids get it, but these adults, you know, I don't know what more we can tell you, you know, to protect our land and water, but it just flies over, you know, because colonization is a drug, and it's a drug of choice, whether it's casino, whether it's, you know, choosing to be nasty, continuing that genocidal behavior and leasing more land. It's crazy. And we, you know, that's where I see it most. And I try my best, you know, to help and to be in these chapter meetings and making sure that these older people know that us young people are watching them, and we'll continue to watch you, and we'll continue to see, you know, the older ones destroy this planet while we're here to fix it all up again. And so that's just what I see, and that's something I remind our elders. And it's getting to the point where the elders are like, that little mean one, that little mean leader. You know, you know, and then the elders who are dedicated, you know, they know, and it's similar, right, as how it is in the global South. Like, it's all similar, that form of discipline. I guess that's it in the struggle, is being disciplined. It's something I've learned during the pandemic, you know, having to completely just be myself and not, you know, be working and going 1,000 miles per hour. The struggle of the pandemic and, you know, pushing for Native liberation. I definitely had to, you know, I had to sit with it all. We all had to sit with it, and we all had to figure out our forms and our connections and balance of discipline, and how do we show up for each other, but also most importantly, how do I show up for myself in the struggle and create, you know, relationships that have good boundaries, that are consensual, you know, these basic human connections, and be okay, because, you know, it's just really hard to move forward, and it's really easy to be angry, but channeling the anger and challenging the fire, I guess, is a way of struggle. But I also see in all of my relatives, right, wherever we were able to show up for PPE or hay, each elder, each young person, they all knew, and they were just like, I'm ready to show up, just let us know when and where. And so, yeah, so that's how I see the struggle, or in the struggle.
That's what's sad. Thank you so much, Shai. I really appreciate that. I want to open up the floor to that same question, to Justine, Cole, and Cleo. And I'm pulling up that question one more time. That question reads, where are we seeing our struggles in our communities, and how can we learn more and be in solidarity with our struggles?
I can go next.
Okay.
So aside from, doing the Red Nation, organizing, I organize, as I mentioned, in the reproductive health and justice intersection. And for when the pandemic started, my organization knew that access to reproductive healthcare was going to be limited, right? Or that was going to be one of the least concerns of our tribal communities, especially for those who use Indian health services. So in New Mexico, there are 12 Indian health service facilities, but only 6 provide reproductive health care. And it's not even the full spectrum of reproductive health care. Because of the Hyde Amendment, federal funds can't be allocated towards abortion care, only in the cases of rape, incest, or if the pregnancy is detrimental to the life of the newborn or the pregnant person. And so while we do have we have abortion funding for our relatives who are seeking access, and it's usually practical support. So money for, child care, food, or gas. Depending on the cases, we do get them like hotel rooms. And a lot of the people that we serve are outside of the state of New Mexico. What would be considered like red states, like the Dakotas or Florida, Oklahoma, and we also have a midwifery care and our fund for Native families to choose their own midwife and doula, and then we pay those midwives and doulas what they're worth, because healthcare, Medicaid doesn't pay midwives what they're worth. And so like our struggle is, when the pandemic hit, knowing that like people needed diapers, people needed menstrual hygiene products, people needed, if they were chest feeding or breastfeeding, they needed supplies that went with that. And so putting together a mutual aid effort for our relatives who needed those access, right? And also working with an organizing group with the First Nations relatives and dispensing care packages on the reserves and the First Nations, because we knew that they also weren't going to be having access to reproductive health care. Condoms were another things that we put in there. We had gotten a donation of Plan B. And so just looking at there's so much that we don't have access to as Indigenous people. And it sucks that us as community members have to step in where our tribal governments, our state governments, and the federal governments failed to do so. And not only that, like calling out our Indigenous men who represent us in these tribal governments, like it falls on you too. It falls on them for leaving us out of the conversation. The young and the old, the trans and the queer, and the non-binary relatives. We have all these lived experiences and skills too, to bring to the table, but all they care about is their egos and feeding capitalism in that way. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much for adding that. I think that's a very important perspective to bring, especially into this conversation around the red deal. Justine or Cleo, I want to open the floor up to you as well. All right, looks like we got Cleo. I think that your mic may be off. Can you go ahead and try and say something really quick, see if we can get you?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, try it.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by doing that. Repeat the question.
Oh yeah, no worries. Where are we seeing our struggles in our communities, and how can we be, or how can we learn more and be in solidarity with our struggles?
Wow, struggles in our community, like that's just like, I can't even imagine. I could scrape the bowl a little bit and tell you some, but the struggle started a long time ago, you know. Struggles now isn't just because of what just happened yesterday. It happened like a long time ago. Taking our lands, taking our language, taking our babies. Like all these recent discoveries of babies. Innocent ones, and they're woke. They're woke. They're here for us. There's a reason why it came to surface now. It did. They're here to help us. They're our ancestors now. As hurtful as that is, you know, what helps me help get through that is to know that they're here for us now. They're our ancestors, you know, they're ancestors that are here to help us and guide us through all the struggles that we had. Coming together as the Red Nation to write this book, The Red Deal. It's a vision, and it's like, I'm not trying to put a whole spiritual spin on this, but really, it's really pertinent that we tie it into that. And then we go with that, with our thoughts and our prayers, it's put on paper. We see the community, this is a brainstorm of not just one mind, it was a bunch of us that got together, not just in Tewa territory, but also in Donetsk. We came here with the Red Deal. We're currently in Donetsk. And like we came with the gathering of minds and spirits and prayers, and we got here. The Red Deal was put in a prayer, and we prayed for it inside like different ceremonial spaces. And so when you see the struggle of the people on a daily basis in the border towns, it conflicts you. It conflicts you. Like you can't just sit there and let it happen day in and day out. You've got to get up. You've got to get up. You've got to go. You've got to go do the work. You've got to go, even if it's as simple as the other day, a bunch of bananas, you know, like, hey, brother, here you go, you know, or maybe not even acknowledging like that, just as a human, the basic need of human rights. Not even rights, like that's just the basics. Like we should have running water. We should have access to good healthcare, good education for our children. That's true. The true, not his story, but our stories. Like those are one of the questions that was asked to the panel of the Indigenous youth. They want to be heard, like they're ready. And I'm really glad that like all these panels came together like this with the youth and the international and the elder panel, and then us. You know, it's very powerful because we're all a gathering of minds. And this is like what the Red Deal is to us. This is the vision that we had. We're going to continue with that. Like, so if anybody's out there that wants to be part of the movement and make a difference, you know, we're here. We're here. It starts with self. Yeah. For me, it starts with self every day. Just wanting to make that difference. Okay, like, you know, part of the Red Deal for me, the big significance is always having food to share, always being able to pray for someone. That's part of the Red Deal. Keeping my family as safe from the system. Like we have to navigate all those things as Indigenous folks and live. Just the basics, like, and if we can make that difference, and you can, like I said, like everybody on the panel said, read the Red Deal, like find yourself in that. And like the struggle is real. Sometimes that's the drive behind all of us, the struggle, you know, that's kind of where it drives me like that. Like, I don't want to get comfortable. I don't want to get complacent as a part of the member of this big movement. I owe it to my ancestors. I owe it to the Red Nation. I owe it to the youth. I owe it to my parents to be that voice for the ones that can't be, you know? And so that's why I sit with this, and I don't sit very long. We got a lot of work to do, and I'm proud of all my comrades, man, because that's without one another and relationship and community, this is not possible. You know, I don't mean to sound all preachy, but that's just how I feel. Like, that's how the part of the Red Deal, I saw it, the process of it, the mind sitting there, the hours, and the people that published and sat down to write it, you know, from the thought to the paper, the prayer, and to the places that it needs to be and coming together. And it's here. Like, it's in a printed form of these visions that we've all have. And so we need to, like, it's almost, there's no excuses. It's on paper. Get the Red Deal and be a part of the movement.
Amazing, strong words, Cleo. Much appreciation to you and all that you do. I want to pass this off to Justine, and I'm so sorry to our audience member who did submit a question for us. We're actually almost out of time, and we'll actually wrap up here after Justine kind of shares their response to the question. Justine, did you need me to repeat the question for you?
No.
Okay, go for it then.
I got it. Where are we seeing our struggles in our communities, and how can we learn to be in solidarity? I've been sitting here thinking about, you know, where are we seeing our struggles in our communities? And I think a better question is, like, where aren't we seeing struggles in our communities? Because as long as, like, capitalism and colonialism, colonization, and their structures and institutions exist, we and the rest of the world are in struggle. The rest of the world is in struggle because of US imperialism. And I think about, you know, how because of that, like, we are all in struggle, you know, together. Even, you know, like with one of our interpreters, Myra, she was telling me about, you know, her mother's homelands, and there's a volcano and it's open for mining. And I told her that, you know, same thing here in our sacred mountains. And through that struggle, you know, we're in solidarity together. I think of one of the first examples that I saw, or that made me realize these points, was through Standing Rock, when the Obama-Biden administration pulled us out of the recession by drilling indigenous lands. And that's where the No DAPL movement came from. And why were they drilling our lands, you know? And it's because they were they're trying to get oil to compete with Venezuela, and then at the same time putting sanctions on Venezuela and creating more struggle in the South. And I think of Tesla and Elon Musk and whatever, you know, I think of how he is actively, like, trying to steal all of the lithium in Bolivia to make up for all of these, like, green energy, you know, cars or whatever, when they're not. It's just creating more capital and creating more reasons to create more money. And, you know, while they're out there trying to get all the lithium in Bolivia, they're over here trying to mine all of our copper from, you know, down in the Apache lands and Paiute lands. In fact, Tesla just put their new factory in Nevada so that they could mine from the land and stuff. And I think of Palestine, where they are under the most, like, one of the most, like, contemporary examples of settler colonialism, and how everything that the Israeli apartheid is doing to Palestinians has been done to indigenous people already. And I think of, you know, and I think of all these other countries throughout the world that are under occupation and they're being extracted from, you know, like Africa and everywhere, every other corner of the world where there's struggle, where where we suffer from imperialism and capitalism. Like, the struggle is in all corners where those things exist. And what also exists in every corner of the world where these struggles exist, the resistance exists. And we have everything to learn from our relatives outside of the United States. We take their lead. In fact, the Red Deal was strongly based on the people, I'm sorry, I can't remember the title, but the Bolivian document, the People's Accords, Rights for Mother Earth. I'm sorry, I messed up that title, but those who know, you know what I'm saying. The Red Deal is largely based on that, and it's based on again just achieving these like small goals just to like live in dignity and to live in good relations with one another. And I think how we're in struggle together is these realizations or these movements towards revolution that exist throughout the world. At the very beginning of the Red Deal, it talks about resistance in Peru and Colombia and Bolivia, and it names all of these uprisings throughout the world, and everybody is on it, and this was like highly emphasized during the internationalism panel. Everybody outside of the United States knows what's up. Everybody outside of the United States knows that US imperialism is the chokehold on the earth itself. And that's because the United States has some 800 military bases throughout the world, suffocating it in order to protect this evil ideology of capitalism and extraction and just all these ugly, dirty things. And it's the indigenous people who are at the forefront of this new revolution. I can feel the tide turning. I can feel it, that something big is about to happen, because we are all fighting for these things, but also because, because of the realization of what we're facing decolonization or extinction. And that isn't some clever wording. It's not a metaphor. It's not anything like that. We mean that literally. It is decolonization or extinction. At the time of the publishing of the Red Deal, we are 100 seconds to midnight on the doomsday clock because of how little time that we have to achieve decolonization. And we mean that in the most like no bullshit kind of way. We need land back. We need human rights for every person on the earth. And these are just very simple things that we're fighting for. And we know that what we are up against, and we know how to do it because of us looking to our relatives throughout the world who are in struggle. We look to Bolivia, where plurinationalism exists, where indigenous rights exist, and we have everything to learn from our relatives in the South. And we look to those examples because they offer an indigenous alternative. They offer an alternative to US imperialism and colonization and empire. And we know that we can build it ourselves. And that's what we do. And I think part of my job here today is to try to inspire those who are in the darkness and to call them to us. If you see that light in the dark, because you know what's going on out there is wrong. You know that all of the pollution and colonization, just all that dirty stuff out there, you know it is the end of the world. And you know that it is wrong, and you know that you can do something, and you know that you have the power within yourself to go ahead and go do it, because it's within reach and it's possible. And I just want to call our comrades to us. In fact, the very last paragraph of the Red Deal, it says, the very last sentence we say, we are waiting for you, we welcome you, and we are ready to act, because we are calling those who are in struggle around the world to come be in struggle with us. It's an everyday struggle to fight for these things. It's a struggle to fix yourself. It's a struggle to overcome addiction and alcoholism. It's a struggle to feed your family every day. It's a struggle to combat liberalism, and it's a struggle to unlearn and relearn and all of these things. But it's also a struggle and a fight to get out, and it's also a struggle to get out into the streets and to fight for these things, not knowing what, or knowing what we're up against, but also not knowing what we're up against with whatever new created audacity that these settlers and the United States comes up with. But we struggle together, and only through this collective struggle will we achieve the liberation of our people. And when I say the liberation of our people, it's not just here in Pueblo territory or in the Southwest, or even the United States, or even Turtle Island, or even just the Americas. We're talking about a global struggle that we are all in together, because we all live in the same earth and the same world together. And we do not have time. We do not have time to not be in struggle, to not create a fine spear and point from this struggle to overcome all of these things together. And so I see our solidarity in struggle together is going to be our revolution, and it's only a matter of becoming more organized, and we can only organize as one if we all have the same motive, the same idea. We're not looking for a new version of empire. We're not looking for whatever liberalism has to offer us. We're not looking for any of those things. We're looking for every single point in the red deal. And I can't emphasize enough like how clearly it's laid out. If I just read the table of contents area, these are our struggles. We want to defund the police, end border town violence, abolish incarceration, end occupation everywhere, abolish imperial borders. We want citizenship and equal rights, free and sustainable housing, free and accessible education, free and adequate healthcare, free, reliable and accessible public transportation and infrastructure, non-carceral mental health support and no more suicides, healthy, sustainable and abundant food, clean water, land and air. We want to end gender, sexual and domestic violence. We want to end missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls and Two-Spirit peoples. We want clean and sustainable energy. We want traditional and sustainable agriculture through land return and remediation. We want land, water, and air and animal restoration. We want protection and restoration of sacred sites. We want the enforcement of treaty rights and other agreements. We want land back. We want all of these things because these are the things that will create, these are our areas of struggle. And those areas of struggle added up together, the resistance to them will create the revolution. And I think that through revolution, through creating a brand new alternative to this hell world, is our solidarity.
Thank you so much for bringing that into our view, into the light, uplifting the red deal in all of our different branches, because that's incredibly important. Like I saw, like I was getting chills. I saw Cleo like fanning themselves, and I did get an inquiry from one of our other panelists to add on to that. And I'm going to go ahead and give them that time. Cole, if you want to go ahead and share, I want to give you a little bit of space before we wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think for a lot of us, as women or queer identifying relatives in the Red Nation, we often get told by our relatives that are all about the patriarchy or heteronormativity, that like they think it's cool what we're doing, but they often turn their backs on us. They turn their backs on the work that we do. And it's like, it's okay. They can be scared, they can be scared and tell us to watch what we say and who we say it to. But, that's just their complacency showing. That's their complacency in being a part of the problem too, And so I want to, throw it out to our cisgender, heterosexual men that want to be a part of the Red Nation movement, that, you know, Verna Teller had some really great things to say yesterday, and I remember seeing her speak, and she was talking about how men's struggles, right? Like all these men in our communities are crying, right? Like we've been hurt and we've been abused too, right? But how can you put that on your aunties and your relatives to hold your hand and bring you to the front lines too and help you heal yourself? Like the men need to start holding each other accountable too, and they need to start bringing back those teaching and values that we had way back when it came to protecting the communities. I would like to see our men come into that, and that's what I just wanted to add.
Thank you all so much. Like it was pointed out in our Zoom chat that's 99 months until 2030, right? 99 months to fix this fuckery. And, I think that's an attainable goal, right? If we want to pick up all of these parts of the Red Deal, like we have to start by reading it. We have to start by understanding the language that's within it. What is settler? What is colonialism? What is settler colonialism? What do we mean by these structures of oppression? And all of it is in here. You just got to pick it up. All right. So with that, I want to thank all of our panelists for bringing all of their knowledge, all of their presence, all of their experiences into this short but definitely over time panel, right? And I just want to give it up to y'all. And if you have any closing words, I want to give it back to the panel because y'all have so much knowledge. But anyone can go ahead and start.
Unless anybody else has any closing remarks, I just want to make sure that, folks show up and organize. And I hope that they leave this weekend feeling empowered, and I hope that they come and find us. If you are in struggle and you want to do something about it, please find us and please reach out to us. Please organize in your communities and do something about it. Find the Red Deal, find out, if you need more information on any of these things, we'll help you. And I just want to let everybody know that you have comrades waiting for you, and you have entire networks of people waiting for you. And it's just a matter of getting up and doing it. Organize the revolution.
The revolution can't organize itself, so we got to do it, y'all.
And if you want to start immediately, we'll be hosting our Indigenous Peoples Day March and Rally tomorrow, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Show up. It's a Red Nation event. It's our first in-person event all year, so come through.
Yes, thank you. Don't forget your masks. All right, anything else from the panel?
Just wanted to add that we all have a role, there's always something that, and if there isn't, there's something that, we can find or, ask, that's just how it always works, has always been within our own families and communities, some people don't like the fact that, like, you don't have to be told what to do, you just do it. And I think that's just because of how we've grown up around our relatives. You know, we saw that, you know, they needed help with something, and we stepped in. We didn't hesitate to be like, oh, you know. So yeah, just, you know, don't be scared. And as the Pueblo elders mentioned, you know, like first time organizing, it's not going to be pretty, you know, it's going to be hard. You know, you're probably not even going to be successful when you try to organize your first event, but that's a part of the learning process. And, you know, I believe our comrades have enough grace to help you navigate that process to step into your leadership.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Shai and Cleo, do you have any closing words for us?
Yeah. Well, this is so powerful. I just wanted to end it with like having courage, build that solidarity in your community. It starts like small, like, you know, like, for example, I'm just gonna tell you a quick story, like, of how I started doing or being a part of the community feed. So I had a sister. She's already in the spirit world, but you know, she used to tend to. And first of all, I'm not trying to like. This is not a sob story. It's just a true story, a part of my walk in the Indigenous movement. I'm not using it for sympathy or anything like that, but this is just like out of respect for my sister. I'm not using that. So it's just a story and the struggle of the movement of the people, you know. So my sister was a victim of alcoholism through colonialism. Had a lot of struggles by predators, things that she didn't recover from, including predators amongst her colonial state. So, anyways, so she would end up on the streets, and like I took it upon myself for many years, like to go find her on Sunday. It was always every Sunday, because at the time, even in my colonial state of mind, I'm like, okay, beer sales aren't till noon, so I'm gonna have to go take care of my sister. I don't want her to get disease. I don't want her to have to suffer. So I enabled, but you know, it was just part of the movement of what I did, and then that evolved to I would find her, bring her lunch, bring her food, bring her booze. And then after a while, she would say, could you bring an extra couple sandwiches, or can you bring extra shirts or whatever, you know? And this is real, maybe over 15, 16 years ago when we first started that. And so we did that. And pretty soon we were like doing more, like we would have soups, like big old soups. And my sister used to kind of crack up laughing. She goes, what are you, the soup kitchen, a mobile soup kitchen now? So that's how it started, you know? And then fast forward to like finding the Red Nation with their vision intact, and like with the leadership there, I found a space where I could do it on a bigger scale. Like it was like, wow, not just myself, but other comrades. Like we were able to feed over 200 people a week and get PPE out there where nobody else, not even the city, was doing that. Not even like there were a lot of other spaces that were shut down, and they were like, it was despairing. But we went out there and we did it like with a prayer in hand, because we were scared of the COVID pandemic. But we like you know, like I said, who else was going to do it? So we did that, you know. So we did that, and so that's how it kind of evolved, you know. Like, and it's not, and I always say, like, don't take it for granted. Like your relatives, be a good relative. Always try to reach out, do what little you can. It starts with like the little things, you know, and then it evolves to like camaraderie and something bigger. Like it's like at an international level, you just keep going, like, keep going, you know, and no matter how hard it gets, keep going. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Maya, Cleo. I'm just like, well, closing remarks, something I would just leave with is don't be too humble. You take up that space, because that's something I tell myself every day is don't be too humble. Take up that space. I encourage all our femmes, women, LGBTQ2 plus folks to step up, you know, take that space. but I also encourage all the Native men out there to get your shit together and show up for us and protect us. Otherwise, we might tell you to get out because that's just the way we're taught. And, you know, protect each other. I think most of all, most importantly, is, you know, discipline, and carry what you can carry, and hold yourself to it and take care of yourself. This movement is hella sacred, and, you know, we're all in it together. So please take care of yourself and, you know, continue to uplift each other and protect each other, and definitely come through tomorrow for our march and rally. Sadly, our efforts of Indigenous Peoples Day have been co-opted across the board, right? Because politicians can't do what we can do until we force them to, right? Like to abolish this crazy ass man holiday of Christopher Columbus, like abolish it, change it. Even in your tribal courts, they may be, you know, they may be celebrating Columbus Day. Tell them to change it because that we're just, you know, colonized that way. And so come through 5th and Central, or 5th and Lomas, no, Central and Lomas tomorrow. Purchase the red deal. Oh, I think I got that wrong. Did I get that wrong? Did I get it right? Yeah, right there. So Central and Lomas at 4:45.
Central Lomas go the same way though.
I think
That
it's
might be
the Y part, like
Oh, okay. Yeah, by that Wendy's.
by Old Town. Yeah, by Wendy's.
Mhm.
So please join us. We're here for you. We can't be warriored up at home forever, as they say. So come through, meet us there.
Amazing. So much love, so much thanks to everyone on the panel. And, you know, I just want to close out our session with please go get the red deal. Please see and be a part of the action and the movement that we're trying to initiate and put across the world. Thank you so much, everyone.